Some roads don't feel dangerous because of what's on them. They feel dangerous because of how quiet they are. Because when the music fades, when the headlights are the only thing holding the dark back, and when the people you trust are too drunk to notice something's wrong, that's when the night decides whether you're getting home safely, or whether you're leaving part of yourself behind on the side of the road. It happened on a night I was sober enough to remember every detail, and unlucky enough to wish I couldn't. I was the designated driver that night. In our group, that was always a big deal. We lived out in the country, far from anything worth doing after dark. If we wanted bars, parties, or even a half-decent place to drink, it meant long drives on empty highways. That's why whoever stayed sober carried more responsibility than just driving. You weren't just a chauffeur, you were the lifeline. That night, it was me. The group was the usual four. Michael, loud and reckless when drunk. Eddie, already halfway unconscious by midnight. Daniela, if she was correcting you, emotional, impulsive, and a lightweight when it came to alcohol. And me, stone sober, keys in my pocket, counting the minutes until I could drop everyone off and sleep. The party itself was nothing special. Loud music, cheap drinks, people shouting over each other like it mattered. By the time we piled into the car, the night had cooled, and the sky had that heavy black look that only rural areas get. No city glow, no stars breaking through the clouds. We took Highway 513 on the way back. If you've never driven it, 513 is the kind of road that doesn't feel real after midnight. No streetlights, no shoulder worth trusting, just a ribbon of asphalt cutting through forest and farmland, with the occasional house sitting back far enough to feel abandoned. The music was blasting, some roaring rock station Michael loved. Eddie was slumped in the back seat, half singing nonsense. Michael was drumming on the dashboard. I was focused on the road. About 10 minutes in, Daniela started whining. At first it was just complaints, groans, exaggerated sighs. Then it escalated. "I have to pee," she said, dragging the words out. "You can wait," I told her. "We're almost halfway home." "No," she snapped. "I have to pee now." She started crying after that. Actual tears. Loud, messy sobs mixed with laughter, the kind only drunk people manage. I tried ignoring it. Then I felt it too. That pressure, that uncomfortable realization that maybe I should have gone before we left town. Daniela was now yelling, screaming, really shouting about how she was going to pee in the car, how this was my fault, how she hated Highway 513. That's when I gave in. "Fine," I said. "I'm pulling over." I slowed the car and pulled onto the dirt shoulder where the crops grew close to the road. The headlights cut across tall, overgrown rows that swayed slightly in the night breeze. Daniela didn't wait. She flung the door open, stumbled out, and disappeared straight into the crops on the right side of the road without a word. Michael laughed like it was the funniest thing he'd ever seen. I went to the opposite side, slightly into the woods. I've never been able to pee with people watching. I finished quickly and headed back. Daniela wasn't back yet. I got in the driver's seat. Eddie and Michael were singing loudly, completely oblivious. Minutes passed. 3, 4, 5. "Where's Daniela?" I asked. Michael shrugged. "She's peeing, dude." 5 minutes turned into longer. I got out of the car again and called her name. Nothing. Michael leaned out and screamed her name at the top of his lungs. He had one of those voices that carried. If she was anywhere nearby, she would have heard it. Still nothing. That's when the irritation turned into something heavier. I didn't want to go into those crops. Something about the way they closed in, how the road disappeared the moment you stepped off it. It made my skin crawl. But she was my friend. I told Michael he was coming with me. I didn't care how funny he found it. I wasn't going in alone. Eddie stayed in the car, already passed out. I grabbed the flashlight from the glove box, and Michael and I pushed into the crops. They were thicker than they looked from the road. Leaves brushed against my arms, stalks snapping softly underfoot. The flashlight beam tunneled ahead of us, illuminating only a few feet at a time. Michael was laughing, calling Daniela's name like it was a joke. I was listening. That's when I heard it. Not her footsteps, not Michael's voice. Something else moving nearby. I stopped abruptly and threw my arm across Michael's chest to halt him. "What?" he whispered, still grinning. "Chill." We stood there, breathing, listening. The crops rustled softly in the breeze. Nothing else. Michael called her name again, louder this time. I joined in, convinced she was messing with us, trying to scare us, trying to be funny. Then the footsteps stopped. We moved forward again. A few seconds later, the crops opened into a narrow clearing. It looked like a walking path, just wide enough for two people side by side, pressed down by repeated use. I scanned left, then right. 3 footsteps sounded ahead of us. Then stalks bent outward as someone stepped into the opening. My flashlight caught their legs first. I assumed it was Michael stepping ahead of me. It wasn't. The beam traveled upward and revealed a man I had never seen before. He stood there, just a few yards away. His face wasn't clear enough to describe, but I knew instantly he wasn't friendly. Every instinct screamed at once. I turned and ran. I didn't think. I didn't shout. I didn't even look back to see if Michael was following me. I just ran. The crops tore at my arms and legs as I pushed through them, my flashlight beam bouncing wildly, useless in my shaking grip. My heart was hammering so hard I thought I might black out before I ever reached the road again. I don't know how long I ran. It couldn't have been more than 10 seconds, but panic stretches time into something elastic and unreal. Then the crops ended. I burst out onto the shoulder of Highway 513, gasping for air, the car's headlights blinding me for a second as my eyes adjusted. Eddie was slumped in the back seat, dead asleep. I yanked open the driver's door and leaned inside, hands shaking so badly I had to grip the steering wheel just to steady myself. "Michael!" I screamed into the night. "Michael!" No response. I slammed my hand down on the horn. The sound ripped through the silence. Loud, aggressive, desperate. I kept leaning on it, over and over, hoping the noise would pull Michael and Daniela back toward the road. My eyes kept drifting to the edge of the crops. I knew, I was going to see that man step out at any second. But nothing moved. The horn blared. The music still played, faintly through the speakers. Eddie didn't stir. Then, finally, the crops parted again. Michael stumbled out first. He wasn't laughing anymore. He was dragging Daniela behind him. She was limp, unconscious, her head lolled forward unnaturally, her feet dragging through the dirt as Michael pulled her toward the car. I jumped out and ran to help him, adrenaline surging, so hard my hands felt numb. We lifted her together and laid her across the back seat. That's when I saw the blood. A dark, wet gash cut across her forehead, just below her hairline. It looked deep, too deep to be from a fall. Blood had dried in her hair, sticky and matted. What the hell happened? I asked. Michael didn't answer right away. His face had gone pale, his eyes wide and glassy. He was breathing fast, like he just sprinted miles instead of yards. "She collapsed," he said finally. "Just dropped." I didn't believe him, but I didn't push. "Hospital," he said suddenly, voice sharper, clearer. "We need to go. Now." I slammed the car into drive and floored it. The 10-minute drive to the nearest hospital felt endless. Daniela groaned once, then went still again. Michael was yelling at me to go faster, then yelling at Eddie to wake up, then yelling at Daniela like she could hear him. I kept my eyes on the road, knuckles white, replaying the image of that man standing in the crops. The hospital lights were blinding when we pulled in. Nurses rushed out as soon as they saw the blood. They wheeled Daniela inside while we followed, frantic, useless. It wasn't until we were standing in the hallway, hands still shaking, that Michael finally told the truth. Not to me, to the nurses. "I saw a guy," he said quietly, "in the crops. He was dragging her." I felt my stomach drop. Michael explained that after I ran, he stayed frozen in place. He said the man stepped closer, grabbed Daniela, and pulled her deeper into the crops like she weighed nothing. Michael swore he blacked out for a moment. When he came to, Daniela was lying on the ground, bleeding. The man was already gone, retreating back into the darkness. The nurses exchanged looks. Police were called. Statements were taken. Daniela woke up later that night, stitched and groggy, confused about why we were all staring at her like she'd come back from the dead. She remembered nothing. Not the party, not the drive, not the road, not the crops, just blackness. The police searched the area later that night. They found no footprints, no weapon, no witnesses. The landowner claimed he hadn't been out there. Highway 513 stayed the same. But none of US did. We stopped partying together after that. Stopped driving that road at night. Stopped pretending the world was as safe as we thought. Because somewhere off that highway, in those crops, someone knew exactly when we'd stop. 12:17 a.m. That number is burned into my memory like a brand. I don't remember the song playing on the radio. I don't remember what I'd eaten for dinner. I don't even remember locking my front door when I left for work that evening. But I remember 12:17 a.m. perfectly. I was driving home from my night shift at the pharmacy, taking the highway I always took when it was late. Most people avoided it at night. No street lights, long curves, thick woods on both sides, and the constant threat of deer stepping out in front of you without warning. I drove it almost every night, so I'd learned to respect it. 50 miles per hour, no faster, ever. The road curved gently to the left, and that's when I saw something that didn't belong. At first, it looked like stars had fallen onto the road ahead of me, a line of tiny white reflections hovering just above the asphalt. My brain took a second to register what they actually were. Traffic cones, dozens of them, spaced perfectly across the highway. And beyond them, blinking slowly in the darkness, a blue light. My stomach tightened. I hadn't seen any signs warning of construction. No alerts on the radio. No notice posted anywhere along the highway. This stretch of road was usually forgotten by the world after midnight. By the time I realized I should brake, it was almost too late. My tires screamed as I slammed my foot down, the car shuddering before coming to a hard stop just short of the cones. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the ticking sound of my engine cooling and the faint buzz of insects from woods. A figure stepped into the glow of my headlights. He was wearing a reflective safety vest, the kind road crews use, and beneath it I could make out what looked like a police uniform. He raised his arms and waved slowly, gesturing for me to stay where I was. Something about the way he moved made my skin crawl. Not aggressive, not urgent, casual. He walked toward my driver's side window, boots crunching softly on the pavement. As he got closer, I could see more details: tall, skinny, maybe 6 feet, dark skin, short hair, a faint glint from an earring in his left ear. He knocked on my window with a single knuckle. Tap, tap. I rolled the window down partway. "License and registration, please," he said. His voice was low, flat, almost bored. I frowned. Did I do something wrong? For just a moment, his eyes flicked to the left, not toward the cones, not toward the blue light, but into the trees. Then he looked back at me. "This is a sobriety checkpoint," he said. Something felt off immediately. I'd been through checkpoints before. They were loud, bright, multiple officers, squad cars, radios crackling. This was quiet, too quiet. "If that's the case," I said carefully, "why do you need my registration?" He didn't answer right away. He took a step back from the window, straightened up, and motioned with his hand. "Step out of the vehicle." Every instinct in my body screamed no, but fear has a way of making you cooperate. I opened the door and stepped out, the night air hitting my face like cold water. Up close, he was taller than I'd realized. He stood uncomfortably close, close enough that I could smell something sharp and metallic on his clothes. He reached into his vest and pulled out a roll of tape. He bent down and pressed one end to the ground, unspooling it until it stretched out about 15 feet. "Place your foot here," he said, tapping the end of the tape. "Arms out. Walk straight." I did exactly as he told me. My heart pounded as I focused on the tape, one step after another. I didn't wobble, didn't miss a step. When I reached the end, I turned slightly, and that's when I noticed the blue light more clearly. It wasn't mounted on a police cruiser. It was sitting on the roof of an old, beat-up sedan. My throat went dry. I turned back toward him. "Can I see your badge?" He didn't respond. He just stared at me. Not annoyed, not surprised. Blank. The realization hit me like a physical weight, dragging my chest downward. This man wasn't a cop. "I'll go get it," he said finally, turning toward his car. As soon as he bent down and disappeared into the open driver's side door, something snapped inside me. I ran. I sprinted back to my car, fumbling with the door handle, nearly dropping my keys as I shoved them into the ignition. The engine roared to life just as I saw him straighten up. He was holding a gun. I slammed my foot on the gas, the car lurching forward, smashing through the line of cones as plastic clattered and flew into the darkness. In my rearview mirror, I saw his headlights flare on as he jumped into his car. But I didn't slow down. I hit 60, then 70. I took the next exit hard, barely keeping control as the road twisted into a residential area with streetlights. As soon as I was surrounded by light, I shut off my headlights and coasted the rest of the way home, my hands shaking so badly I could barely keep them on the wheel. I didn't sleep that night, and I never took that highway again. Years later, I still wonder how many drivers stopped for him, and how many never made it home. I didn't panic when the gas light came on. That probably sounds stupid, but the gauge in my Jeep had been broken for months. It would randomly dip to empty, then jump back up again like nothing was wrong. I'd learned to ignore it. What I didn't ignore was the beeping. One short, sharp chirp, then another. I was somewhere in Vermont, well past midnight, driving from Maine to Upper New York to spend the week with family. I'd left work around 5:30 p.m., thinking I'd get there before midnight. Somewhere along the way, time stretched thin, and the road started feeling endless. The top of my Jeep Wrangler was off, letting the warm summer air roll over me. No radio, just the sound of tires humming against asphalt and insects screaming from the trees. Then the car shuddered, just a little, enough to notice. I pressed the accelerator. Nothing. The engine coughed, sputtered, and then silence. The Jeep rolled forward a few feet before coming to a dead stop on the side of a narrow road that disappeared into thick woods in both directions. I stared at the dashboard. Out of gas. I laughed once, sharp and humorless, then grabbed my phone. No service bars, but somehow AAA still went through. I gave him my location as best I could. About 20 minutes, the operator said. I leaned back in my seat and waited. For the first 15 minutes, it was just annoying. I walked slow circles around my Jeep, scrolling my phone, texting friends, posting a joking story about being stranded in the middle of nowhere. That's when I realized how quiet it was. No distant traffic, no wind, no movement. Just crickets and something else. Footsteps, heavy ones. At first, I told myself it was a deer, maybe even a moose. This was Vermont, after all, but the steps weren't random. They were deliberate. Slow, careful. I walked around to the passenger side of the Jeep, closer to the woods, squinting into the darkness. Hello, I called, feeling ridiculous the second the word left my mouth. That's when I heard it. Clap. One sharp sound, like hands coming together. I froze. A few seconds passed. Then, clap, clap, clap. 3 claps this time. Human. My skin prickled. Is someone there? I called again, my voice shaking despite my effort to sound calm. Silence. No footsteps. No clapping. Nothing. I stood there for another 10 seconds before backing away and climbing back into the driver's seat, locking the doors even though I knew how useless that was with no roof. A minute passed. Then I heard the footsteps again. Closer. I leaned forward, peering into the trees. That's when I saw the head. It peeked out from behind a tree trunk about 30 feet away. Not the whole body, just the head. The face was pale, expressionless. The eyes looked wrong, empty, lifeless, like glass marbles reflecting moonlight without actually seeing anything. It didn't blink. It didn't move. I didn't scream. I don't know why. Maybe fear short-circuited something in my brain. I slowly reached up and rolled the windows all the way up, even though they offered no real protection. Then I shut off the headlights. Instant darkness. The forest sounds came rushing back, louder now. Every rustle felt like it was right next to me. I ducked down below the dashboard, barely breathing, my heart hammering so hard I was sure it could be heard outside the car. Then, click, the sound of a hand testing the door handle. I clenched my teeth, holding my breath. The handle jiggled again. I waited for pounding, for glass to shatter, for a hand to reach inside and grab me. Instead, I felt fingers clamp down on the back of my shirt. I screamed. A bright white light flooded everything at once, accompanied by the deep rumble of an engine. The grip vanished instantly. I scrambled upright, just as a AAA truck pulled up beside my Jeep, headlights blazing. I jumped out of the car, sobbing, barely able to form words as I tried to explain what had just happened. The driver, a big guy in his 40s, listened without interrupting, his calm presence grounding me back into reality. He filled my tank. We exchanged a few quiet words. Then he left. I drove the rest of the way home in silence, never taking my eyes off the road or the rearview mirror. To this day, I don't know what grabbed me that night, but I know one thing for sure. It wasn't an animal.